This portion of the news brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
The verdict in the Alicia Smith murder trial, guilty. The woman accused of killing her boyfriend over 2 years ago was back in court today for the ruling.
Yeah, that decision was handed down this afternoon before Justice Indra Charles. Fern Carey was there and has all the details.
Alicia Smith is now awaiting sentencing after a jury found her guilty 7-2 of killing her boyfriend Aldian Gibson Jr. over 2 years ago. Smith's defense was that she was in an abusive relationship with the deceased, and on the night the tragedy happened, back on May 3rd of 2012, she and the deceased had an argument. Smith claimed the deceased was the aggressor, and as a result, she stabbed him in an attempt to defend herself. However, prosecutors contended that on the night in question, Smith waited 15 minutes after the argument with Gibson was over and then intentionally and unlawfully stabbed him with a knife in the neck in retaliation. Jurors deliberated for just under 2 hours as they sifted through the evidence. As the verdict was read in court, Smith and her relatives appeared stunned. At the same time, relatives of the deceased are happy with the verdict.
We've waited 2 years for this, and although it doesn't bring him back, we're just happy justice was served. He was fun-loving. He was a great guy. You can get anything from him. He had lots of friends. He was very good. He's a very good person.
Now, before Smith is sentenced, a psychiatric and probation report will be prepared. Smith will be sentenced on October 2nd. Fern Carey, ZNS Network News.
After last week's visit from officials at the International Monetary Fund, IMF, a leading accountant estimates it could be anywhere from 1 to 3 years before the Bahamas experiences any major economic recovery. Managing partner at HLB Galanis & Co., Philip Galanis, remains hopeful things will turn around as a number of positive things are happening, including Bahamar's December opening, foreign direct investment on the Family Islands, and the successful implementation of value-added tax, all factors he believes could impact the country's economic growth.
The economy doesn't grow really until people are employed, because people will spend money, they will create opportunities for business people to expand, for them to create more opportunities for other persons, and generally for the revenue, the country's national revenue to increase, which has a positive impact on tax income, which is clearly what is required in the macroeconomy. What also needs to happen in a very real way is that we need to see our banks be more amenable to investing.
Now, at the end of those meetings, the IMF concluded that economic activity continues to recover, but momentum remains weak, with growth estimated to increase from 0.7% in 2013 to 1.2% this year. They recognize the government's efforts in reducing the fiscal deficit from 5.4% to 4.5%, and that the economy's external position is also expected to improve. Galanis believes the government is heading in the right direction with its policy decisions, but the key to sustaining economic growth is through expansion, both locally and internationally. He added that no investor wants to come into an economy that's constantly challenged by large deficits and national debt.
We need to be able to look outward, look just beyond our own borders for growth. We're going to grow domestically, we're going to grow internally, but we also need to combine that with a more expansive approach and perspective to trade, and to recognize that the only way that we're going to be able to ultimately expand the economy is by doing two things: doing what we need to do internally, but also looking beyond our shores.
Controversy has hovered over a deal to restructure the city landfill, but Minister for the Environment Ken Dorset is refuting claims of corruption surrounding the selection of a partner.
The Prime Minister himself got involved in this project, and the Bahamian group, which was led by Ginny McKinney, Henry Dean and Francisco Cardenas, who wanted to have an interest in managing the landfill, met with the Prime Minister and indicated to the Prime Minister and myself, together with representatives of the Department of Environmental Health Services, that they could not undertake what the government wanted them to do in the absence of getting 100% of the tipping fee revenue at the landfill, and without being able to generate energy from waste. We indicated that this contract was not one where we were prepared to provide anybody with 100% of our tipping fee revenue, because we have landfills throughout the islands which we use those resources to help manage, coupled with the fact that we were not going to mix up energy with what we were doing in terms of the landfill remediation. And so I want to make it very, very clear that we ensured that those who had expressed an interest in getting involved in this at that time was involved in the discussions. They indicated that they could not meet the parameters that were before the government.
Minister Dorsett pointed out that successive governments have had major problems with the landfill for a very long time, and this administration now believes it has the technical support to finally resolve the problem. The minister also denied having any interest in Renew Bahamas.
The government, having regard to the energy sector reform, did not want to give a private sector entity full and complete control of the landfill, and that's why we've done it under the guise of a joint venture where the government still maintains control of the site, but they're working together with us to achieve these desired ends. The matter was put to cabinet. Cabinet approved it. The negotiations of the terms were led by the Office of the Prime Minister. Subaltern Bethel and Deepak Bhatnagar were the ones engaged to make sure that the government got the best possible outcomes in terms of the commercial arrangements. But absolutely not. I have no interest in Renew Bahamas Limited whatsoever.
BTC would not have its consumers feel marginalized in any way. That from CEO Leon Williams. He says while that may have been the case in the past, he's ensuring that through multi-million-dollar upgrades now taking place, residents can boast of enjoying world-class standards. Here's Jiminita Swain.
I look at all the reports that have been done over the last couple of months on this network, and everybody's focused on New Providence, And my thing is, you can't marginalize the citizens in your country along lines of telecommunications.
That's the position of BTC CEO Leon Williams on what needs to be done moving forward as the company continues to upgrade its 4G network and other platforms at a cost of over $100 million. But Williams says citizens, inclusive of students and business professionals, need to have BTC's services at an optimum level.
You can't have a student in Inagua who has to do the same BJCs or BGCSCs with no access to the internet, and someone in Nassau has access to Wi-Fi, they've got access to DSL, they've got access to the phone, data on the phone, and they're doing the same examinations. That person has to be put into the same, leveling the playing field for the students as well as the business persons, down to extremities.
But there are, of course, other essential services that need to have network access, such as national security.
You can't have the access of the network if people have no access. The police, the custom officer, the nurse down at the hospital in Inagua, sitting there waiting, can't get through, can't make a phone call, can't surf the internet. You're putting the country at whole in a security risk. So from that point of view, I have to think about the entire Bahamas. And so when we do the upgrades in New Providence, we've got to push those upgrades out to the Family Islands.
While more land is acquired for the construction of necessary cell towers, Williams said the focus will continue to be on ensuring that everyone across the Bahamas receives premier services from BTC. Jiminita Swain, ZNS Network News.
All right, well, still to come, the International Basketball Academy Summer Camp underway at the Kendall Isaacs Gym.
This portion of the news was brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.